this week on slowing things down. And this is really important in our yoga practice. So if we do everything really quickly in our yoga practice, there's a lot of disadvantages to that because we're going to lack stability. So if we go a little slower, we're going to feel more stable in our bodies. It's also a lot better to breathe more slowly. This is better for our hearts if we're breathing more slowly. It's better for our mental well-being if we're breathing more slowly. So if we have a faster breath, it's going to increase things like anxiety and insomnia and just feeling unsettled. So slowing our breath is, of course, really important. But it can be really hard for us to slow down. When we do, if we're used to being a kind of person on the go all the time, it can cause us anxiety to actually try and slow down. And I was listening to a podcast about this topic, and it was really interesting. They were saying how, first of all, we all know we live in a culture that's fast-paced, moves really quickly. And then when we try to slow down, we feel things more, right? We hear our thoughts, we feel what's going on in our bodies more, and then there's good to that, but it also can make us uncomfortable, right? So sometimes we speed up so that we don't have to feel what we're feeling. We don't have to think about what's going on in our heads because we're very preoccupied and multitasking and all of that. But in those situations, we're never fully present for anything because we're going so quickly, we're not present, and we're doing so many things at one time. So this is a more kind of practice of really slowing things down. We're going to do a little bit of standing work, but we're going to work up toward some seated postures in which we hold them for a longer period of time. So we're going to start in our seated position, and feel free to sit up on a prop. I just want to grab my phone from over here because I have a timer on here that I'm going to time those seated poses later. So I'm going to get that ready. Okay. So we'll sit up nice and tall. Take a moment to widen out your sit bones. So we just kind of lean side to side, hold the sit bones apart. And you'll notice when you do that, you're going to feel a little more grounded. And that's what we're going for. And then lengthen up through your spine. And we'll start to focus on your breathing. Now, initially here, we don't have to even change anything, but just start to notice. Notice your inhale, notice your exhale. And see if you can challenge yourself to be fully present for your full cycle of breath. So a lot of times we rush the breath and we don't finish our exhale before we get to the next cycle of inhale. So as you start to follow your breath, can you notice the full exhalation? Get all the way empty without straining before you start that next inhalation. And that starts to slow things down. And then the next thing we can do to slow our breath is to utilize what we call the Ujjayi breath in yoga. So Ujjayi breath is sometimes called the ocean breath because we make a little constriction in the back of our throat that starts to slow the breath down. So it's like when you fog a mirror and you go, ha, ha, and you feel that little kind of restriction in the back of your throat. So as you're breathing in and breathing out, can you find a little bit of vibration in the back of your throat on every breath? And let's stay with that for a few more cycles. Now, those of you who kind of been with me this whole year know that I'm really focusing a lot on belly breathing, super important. So also let that breath come low into your abdomen. And as you inhale, the belly moves outward, not inward. And as you exhale, you can even start to lift your pelvic floor, give your belly a little bit of a squeeze to help facilitate that exhale moving all the way out. So as a culture, particularly as women, we're often like sucking it in. And when we suck it in, the breath goes more into our chest, and that's called reverse breathing. and not as beneficial. It's definitely going to cause more sense of stress in our body, more anxiety. Lower belly breath is going to be more soothing and calming for our nervous system. Now from here, we're going to take our next inhale, reach the arms up and overhead. And interlace your palms, flip the palms, and press the palms up toward the ceiling. Now we're going to hold here for a few breaths. So inhale into your belly. And as you exhale, give a lift to your pelvic floor, your lower belly, and let your chin drop slightly toward your chest, which lengthens the back of your neck. Good. Now we're going to add on some movement of the arms. So on your next inhale, let your palms come down to the crown of your head. And as you exhale, push the palms up slowly toward the ceiling. And then we're going to repeat that. And we're going to add on some different actions. So inhale into the belly, palms down. Exhale, push the palms up, lift your pelvic floor, your low belly, and let your chin drop towards your chest just slightly. And then let's do that a few more times. Inhale into the belly. Exhale, push up, pelvic floor, low belly, chin. Now we're going to add a count to this. So on your next cycle, let's finish out this one. On your next cycle, we're going to count to maybe 3, maybe 4. And we're going to try and keep the breath the same count on the inhale and the exhale. So next inhale, count it out as you come down. And make that same count going up. And you're going to still lift the pelvic floor, lift the belly, press the palms up, drop your chin. 3 more cycles like this. And all of those things we're doing, pelvic floor, low belly, chin, these are called bandhas in yoga. It's like our root lock, our belly lock, and our throat lock. And they all help us contain our energy, especially when we're feeling very scattered, a little bit stressed. It's going to help us feel calmer. Last round. And after this one, go ahead and release and let your arms come all the way down and just give the shoulders a little roll after that work. And reverse it, go the other direction. Okay, so we're going to do some of those same actions as we come to start our movement practice. I want you to still focus on that even inhale and exhale for now as we do our cat-cows. So let's come into our tabletop position and feel free to put your blanket underneath your knees here. And set up hands under shoulders, knees under hips. And whatever that count was for you, 3, 4, 5 counts, whatever works, we're going to repeat that here. So we'll take an inhale, exhale, round the spine, squeeze the low belly, pelvic floor. And then inhale, let the pelvic floor release as the belly comes more toward the floor. And exhale, round. So go ahead, keep that going for a few more cycles. And have your inhale and your exhale start to match each other. So this starts to help us regulate our breath. A lot of us favor our inhalation and we don't get all that exhale out. It's also really important for the body to help like detoxify, help us release, to have a nice complete exhalation. So make sure you find that little squeeze on the belly as you come into your rounded spine. So you're going to press out all the air. 2 more cycles here. And notice how it feels to slow down. Is it challenging for you? Does it feel pretty normal for you? 1 more cycle. And after that next one, go ahead, come back to neutral and move yourself back into a child's pose. So you could take your knees a little wider and either stack your head on your hands or you can reach your arms forward. We're going to take about 3 cycles of breath there. And even here, you could give that little squeeze to the belly as you exhale. Send some breath into your back body. 1 more cycle. And then on your next inhalation, come back up into your tabletop position. Okay, so now we're going to move from tabletop to down dog, and we're just going to do some repetition of these movements so we can really focus on our breath today. So we're going to inhale, slightly looking up, and then exhale, downward facing dog. You can always keep your knees bent here, but try to lift your sit bones up nice and high. And then repeat. Inhale, looking forward, knees down. Exhale, coming up. And as you come up, give that squeeze to the lower belly, maybe even little pelvic floor, maybe a little tucking of your chin. You can stay with your Ujjayi breath, that little constriction in the back of your throat, and stay with an even inhalation and exhalation. One more time, I'm going to hold our dog. So this time, lift up, hold your dog, and then pedal out your feet. Bend one knee and the other. Let your hips move a little bit. Maybe shake your head a little, yes and no. Release your neck. Okay, from here, we're going to come into plank pose, top of a push-up. And I'm going to recommend dropping your knees down because we're going to work with slowly lowering down. A lot of times we do what I call the sloppy lower down, where we kind of plop ourselves down. But I want us to take our time today. So we're going to take our inhale in our plank. And as you exhale, lower down as slowly as you can. Keep your elbows close in. And keep your chest open rather than your shoulders collapsing forward. And we're going to come all the way down to the ground. Let the forehead touch for a moment. Take your shoulder heads back. And then inhale, lift up into a low cobra. Exhale down. Press to tabletop pose. And back to downward facing dog. Hold your dog for another breath. Exhale it out. And then knees down, coming back to tabletop. Okay, so now we're going to move from tabletop to child's pose. And the next stage of slowing down is to start to lengthen out our exhale. So most of you have done this with me before. We're going to take an inhale, whatever your count is. And as you move back to child's pose, start to let your exhale be a count or 2 longer than your inhalation. And let your chin come in, let your elbows soften. And you don't even have to get all the way to the floor if it's too much. Just go as far as you can. And then inhale, come forward, slight lift of your gaze. Exhale, move back and see if you can stay with a little bit longer exhalation. Let's do a few more cycles. Each time you come back for your exhale, give that squeeze to your lower belly, pelvic floor. Let your chin come in a little bit and let your elbows soften. Now, as you keep going, let's do 3 more cycles. See if you can find a little pause at the bottom of your exhale. Squeeze all that breath out, hold it out for a moment, and then start your inhalation. So we add a little pause at the bottom when we're completely empty. If that causes stress, anxiety, too much, skip that pause. So some of us, it's not feeling good. Maybe the body's not quite ready to hold that pause. Takes a little time to build up that skill. One more cycle here. Longest exhale as you can. And then when you're ready, back up into tabletop position. Okay, let's come back to downward facing dog. Lift your knees, lift your hips, and then inhale to your plank pose. Drop your knees down to the ground again. Now, we're going to this time count it out. So take an inhale, keep your chest and crown of the head reaching forward. As you exhale, count out how long it takes you to get to the ground. Elbows stay close to your body, shoulders stay back. Eventually, you're coming all the way down. Try not to plop yourself down. Use control. And then inhale, lift up, cobra pose. Exhale, tabletop to downward facing dog. And now we're going to walk our hands back to our feet. And you could take your blanket out of the way for now. We're going to lose the blanket for a bit. So standing in a forward fold, have a little bend in those knees. And then we're going to inhale, halfway lift. Hands on your thighs. Chin is in, so we're not kinking our neck. As you exhale, fold forward. Now we're going to stick with that pattern. Inhale, coming up. Exhale, a long exhalation. Squeeze your belly. One more time. Now, next inhalation, we're going to come all the way up to stand. Reach the arms up. And then release arms down at your side, coming into your mountain pose. Good. So take a moment and find your mountain pose. I want you to root your feet into the ground. And when you root your feet, notice how it helps your leg muscles engage. And then find a sense of your low belly lifting and your tailbone lengthening. So we find a neutral pelvic tilt. Turn your palms forward. Good. Now inhale, let's reach those arms up. Keep the legs nice and strong, nice and active. And as you exhale, we're going to come forward, fold over your legs, little bend in those knees. Chin comes in, squeeze your belly. Inhale to your halfway lift, hands up on your thighs. Exhale, fold forward. Chin comes in. Inhale, reach the arms all the way up. And exhale, hands to your heart. I'm noticing there's just a slight lag in when I say something, the video is like that I'm seeing on you guys is slightly behind. So it might be our connection. I'm not really sure what we can do about it, but just be aware of that. If it's something seems a little off, that's what I'm noticing, okay? I have a Wi-Fi extender that I use in my yoga room. So I don't know if there's something that they could do to give you a little more of a boost there, but as long as it's okay on your end, I'm not too worried about it. Okay, we're gonna bring our hands in front of our heart space. Good. And then we're gonna inhale, reach the palms up. And then as you exhale, hands back to the heart, bend the knees a little bit and hinge forward to a halfway shape. Chin in, crown of the head forward, shoulder heads are lifting. So it's just a halfway. Okay, inhale, reach up. Exhale, hands to your heart, slight bend in the knees, come into that halfway shape and give that squeeze to the belly, tuck your chin and lengthen the back of your neck. 2 more rounds. Now, if you have any back strain in what we're doing, make sure you bend those knees even more. Make sure you're hinging at your hip creases so your spine is not rounding here. We're keeping that spine in a really straight line. One more time, inhale, palms up. And exhale, coming forward. Good. Now release, let those arms come all the way down. Widen your feet. And you can hold on to opposite elbows and take a few breaths there. While you're there, really charge up your legs. So engage your legs by rooting your feet into the ground. Keep that slight bend in your knees so you feel like your sit bones are lifting and the crown of the head, the chest are reaching toward the ground. So we get a nice forward fold. One more breath. And then when you're ready to either press up or roll up, but use those legs, I would say press up with a straight spine if you have any back stuff going on rather than roll up. If your back is pretty healthy, rolling up is pretty good. No problems there. Okay, now we're gonna come back and do a couple of full sun salutations. And when we do the full sun salutations, stick with the same breath patterns, those long exhales, squeezing of the belly on the exhale, and we're gonna do those slow lowers from our planks, working on our upper body strength. And now see if you can like have a little competition with yourself. So if your number lowering down last time was like a 6, see if you could go for a 7 or an 8. So we'll stand at the top of the mat and we'll go through a few modified sun salutations. Inhale, reach your arms up. Exhale, fold forward, belly in, slight bend in those knees. Inhale, halfway lift, gazing at the floor. Plant your hands, step back, plank pose, top of a push-up. And you can drop your knees here if you like. If you want that challenge, you can always keep those knees up. But I really think it's beneficial to put knees down and then slowly lower. Otherwise, we often lose our form going slower. And as we go slower, we're building more strength. Inhale, cobra. Exhale, tabletop. Downward facing dog. Take an inhale, and as you exhale, walk your feet forward, top of the mat. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale and fold. Inhale, reach the arms all the way up. And exhale, hands to your heart. Let's do one more round. See if you can make that lowering down even slower one last time. Inhale, reach the arms. Exhale, fold. Long exhalation. Inhale, halfway. Plant your hands, step back, plank pose. Drop those knees when you're ready if you're lowering knees. And then making sure keep your good form. The shoulders stay back. Don't let them collapse. Try to see if you can go a little longer this time. And right when you start to plop, that's where that little weakest link is in that shoulder girdle. Inhale, cobra. Exhale, downward facing dog. Last time here. Take a breath here, and when you're ready, walk your feet forward, top of the mat. Inhale to your halfway lift. Exhale, fold over your legs. Inhale, reach the arms all the way up. And exhale, hands to your heart. All right, we're gonna do one more set of standing poses, and then we're gonna start our first seated posture. So we're gonna stand, so we're facing the long way on our mat and step the feet apart wide. Hands on your hips initially. Now pause here and root your feet into the ground. Really charge up those legs, lift through the crown of your head, lift the front of your pelvis. So you feel a neutral in your tailbone and your low belly. And then turn your whole right leg out to the side. Turn your left toes in, widen your heel. We're coming into warrior 2. So we're gonna bend into that front knee and really root down into your feet. Feel your heels drop into the ground and then arms come up to shoulder height. Take your gaze over your right hand and we're holding here. We're gonna take 5 breaths in our warrior pose. Now every inhale, sense a lengthening of your spine. Every exhale, ground and root your feet down. Lift your pelvic floor, lift your low belly. Stay with those long exhalations, couple more rounds. So again, we build strength, we build stability, not only in the body, but in the mind as we hold these postures. Stillness can be really therapeutic if we're under any stress. One more breath. Long, complete exhalation. On your next inhale, reach your arms up, parallel your feet, and then bring your hands down to your hips. Good, pause there. Get stable, get grounded again, nice and tall through the spine, and then we'll do our other side. So turn your left leg out, toes point to the left, right toes in a little bit, widen your heel, and then we bend into that left knee and reach the arms up. Really press your feet into the ground, lengthen your tail, lift the low belly, and you can gaze to your left. And then holding it here, each inhale lengthening, each exhale lift pelvic floor, low belly, and push your feet into the ground. And that activation of the muscles is really stabilizing in the body. Two more breath cycles. Keep your face nice and relaxed, nice and soft. Last one. Okay, from here, inhale, reach the arms up, parallel your feet, and then release. Arms down, hands on your hips, and pause. We're going to do one more pose on each side. We're going to come into our side angle pose. So we're going to turn that right leg out again, left toes in, bend the knee. We'll start in our warrior two. Good. From here, left hand on your hip. Reach your right arm toward the right, and then bring your forearm onto your thigh, coming into side angle position. Couple things here before we take that arm off the hip. Pull your tailbone in a little bit. Notice how that helps you engage your legs. Root down into your feet, especially your heels. And now take your top hand on your top rib cage. Turn it open toward the ceiling. So we open up the front of the chest. Now take that arm straight up. Good. Now, if you want to stay with that arm up, that's fine. Or you could take it over your ear, get a little more side stretch in. Holding it here for a few more breaths. We're pressing down into our feet to activate those legs. And then really reach through that top arm, either straight up or over your ear. Two more breaths. Remember to breathe into your belly and then squeeze the belly out as you exhale. Last one, long exhalation. And then next inhale, we're coming back up to your warrior two. And reach your arms up, parallel your feet, and hands to the hips. Good, pause here. We got one more side, then we're gonna do our first seated posture. So let's turn left leg out, right toes in, widen the heel, and bend that knee, warrior two. Right hand on the hip. Reach for the front, or whichever direction you're going, reach, reach, reach. Forearm on your thigh. And then pause here. Okay, same actions apply, rooting into your feet. Pull your tailbone a little in. And this time, take both of your shoulders back. Open your collarbones. Good. And then when you're ready, arm could reach up. And if you like, take it over your ear. Keep rooting into the feet. And as you inhale, expand more by reaching through your top arm. And as you exhale, squeeze the low belly, pelvic floor. Two more breaths. You can always use your Ujjayi breath as well, constricting the back of your throat. Last breath. After you finish that exhale all the way, coming back up to your warrior two. And then straighten that leg, reach your arms overhead, parallel your feet, and then hands to the hips. This time, heel toe your feet back in, and let's shake it out a little bit. Okay, from here, we're gonna come down to sit. So you're gonna grab a blanket or a pillow, whatever you wanna sit on. And we're gonna take our first seated posture. The first one, we're only gonna hold for 1 minute, and we're gonna build up to some longer holds. So we're gonna put the feet together for a bound angle position. Okay, so first, before we fold forward, let me just get my timer ready. I want you to really widen out those sit bones like we do when we sit. Always a good thing to do when we sit. It serves a couple purposes. It widens our base, but it also gives us a little bit more ability to hinge at the hips to fold forward, because our pelvis is really rotating around the axis of our legs. And if our tailbone is stuck under us, we're not going to get anywhere. So we need to find the tops of the sit bones. Okay, so first, really sit up nice and tall here. My friends who have back problems, I want you to stay in a straight spine and not round your spine, maybe not even fold forward, totally up to you. If you want to come forward, we're going to take an inhale and exhale, hinge at your hip creases and fold. And you can have hands in front of you on the floor, or you can clasp your hands around your feet and let your chin drop a little bit so that the crown of the head feels more lengthened, the back of the neck is lengthened. And now we're going to stay here for 1 minute of stillness. Keep focusing on your breath. As you inhale, feel a nice rise of the belly. And as you exhale, maybe a little bit of a squeeze of the belly. And you might notice as you continue to breathe that your body allows you to go a little farther without forcing it. You're over halfway there. One more breath here. Good, and on your next inhale, let's slowly start to come up. Pause at the top. And then use your hands to bring those knees up. From here, hold behind the backs of your legs, draw your shoulders back, come onto your toes, lean on the backs of your sit bones. And if you want to go a little farther, you can lift your feet up, come into boat pose. And we're not going to hold this one super long. You can stay there or reach your arms forward if you like, or you can always keep those toes on the ground. Keep lifting your chest. One more breath. Good, and then from here, crossing your shins, coming forward, and make your way back to downward facing dog. Okay, so take your time. We're gonna continue to kind of build in some standing poses and then back to more seated poses. Bend your knees a lot. Walk your hands back toward your feet and fold over your legs. Next inhale, we're going to come all the way up, reach your arms up. And exhale, release. Arms down at your side. Good. Okay, we're going to try chair pose, and we're going to hold chair pose for 1 minute. So I want you to have a few things in mind when we come into our chair pose. So first, we're going to bend the knees and make sure that your hip creases move back and you have weight in your heels. If our weight's too far forward, it's going to be more stressful on our knees. And you want to make sure you can look down and see the tips of your toes. If you can't, you need to move your hips back a little more. And then tone your belly, lift your chest, and you can either do hands at your heart, a little more gentle, or arms can go up. It's going to be more challenging on your back. So I'm going to start the timer now. Make sure that belly is toned to support your lower back. And you're going to press through your heels. I'm going to turn this way so I can watch my timer. Press through your heels, spread your toes. You're a little lighter on your toes. Maybe you might be able to drop your hips a little more. Keep breathing. And as you exhale, give that little squeeze to the belly. If your knees start to bother you, make sure you come out to stand up. You can stand in mountain pose. We're over halfway there. We're building strength in our legs. And it's very grounding. We've got about 3 more breaths. Long exhalation. 1 more cycle. After you finish your next exhalation, go ahead and press in your feet. Rise all the way up to stand. Good. Shake it out if you need to. And then let's come back to the floor. Inhale, reach your arms up. Exhale, fold over your legs. Inhale to your halfway lift. Step it out into a downward facing dog. And then from here, drop your knees down to the ground and come back into your seated position. Sitting up on your blanket or your prop. Okay, this time we're going to do a cross leg position. Let's start with our right leg in front. Pull your sit bones apart. Get a really wide, stable base. And then let's inhale, reach the arms up, interlace your palms, press the palms up toward the ceiling. Get really long through your spine, let your sit bones drop toward the ground. And then from here, bring your hands down to the ground in front of you. Pause here. See if you can scoot your sit bones back, like you're going to stick your booty back behind you. And then from here, see if you can walk your hands out a little farther. You might stay right where you are. Inhale, and as you exhale, maybe soften down. You might let your spine round if it's okay for your back. Let your head go. If you are close to the ground, grab a block and place it underneath your head. You can always stack 2 blocks up as well. Otherwise, you can just let your head be heavy. And we're going to take a 2-minute hold in this position. So in the last moment or two, well, we're not quite there yet, but I want you to think about letting go of effort in the pose. Now that we've gotten into it, we were active, we worked our spine a bit. Now start to let things soften. Let your pelvis be heavy. Let your belly be soft. Let your shoulders soften. And have a sense of like surrendering into this moment, into this posture, finding that stillness. You're already halfway there. Stay with those long exhalations. So in my yoga teachers group, we've been talking about this topic of, like, for example, our social media and things like that, the news, how everything pulls our attention outside of ourselves. And that can be very depleting. When we practice focusing on the moment, on our breath, focusing maybe on sensations that we're feeling in our bodies, we're starting to bring that energy back in. And that's nourishing, that's rejuvenating, as opposed to always having our energy go outward. Yogis talk a lot about this topic. I'm going to read a little bit of something to you on your next slide. So last breath here. Sometimes a little storytelling can help distract you from the moment. Now I want you to start to come up really slowly. So take your time, walk it up, bring your head up last. And when you get to the top, have a pause. Good. Now before side 2, it might feel good to kind of stretch your legs out or windshield wipers. So whatever might feel good, go ahead and take a moment. And then we're going to cross that left shin in the front. So take your time. Once you come back to your cross-leg position, widen out those sit bones. You can pull them apart and even slightly to the back. So it's kind of the flesh is moving out of the way, so our pelvic floor can be a little more on the ground. All right, inhale, reach those arms up. We're going to be active at first. Interlace your palms. Reach up tall, drop the sit bones, get as long as you can before we come into the forward fold. So we create space between the vertebra, and then hands are going to come down to the floor in front of you. Okay, wiggle those sit bones back behind you. So if you had a tail, you'd be sticking it out, stick the booty out behind you, and then maybe start to walk it out, coming a little deeper into that forward fold. And then once you arrive, you can start to let go of the effort. So let things soften a bit. Relax through the belly and the shoulders and the face. So this is from the teacher I studied with in the past year, my teacher, T.S. Little, his book. And some of you might have heard me read some of these things before about how speed gets trapped in the body. He says we are a culture of speed. The world today moves at such a dizzying pace that it is difficult to avoid being pulled into a vortex of speed. Thanks to the advent of our smartphones, we now carry implements loaded for high-speed connectivity everywhere we go. Whether in large urban areas or rural towns, we are wired into high-speed grids. In this era of speed, we strive for convenience. We have groceries delivered. We purchase tickets faster for faster trains that take us hundreds of miles in an hour. We use electronic personal assistants like Alexa, Siri, and Google to access millions of facts in a mere few seconds. We track weather systems halfway around the globe. You're almost there, 30 more seconds. In the Hindu tradition, time is mapped out as a cycle of years, massive in a number and scale. And there are 4 ages in this tradition called the yugas. They depict the life cycle of the cosmos and the longevity of human civilization. The era we occupy right now is called the Kali Yuga, said to be the last of the 4 epochs of time. Now I'm going to read the rest in a moment, but that's your 2 minutes. I want you to very slowly start to bring yourself up. Take your time. Have a pause at the top. And this is what I found really interesting. He says in the Kali Yuga, it is said that the wisdom of the yoga teachings declines. Widespread chaos and disorder prevail, and everything spins faster. And it's known in that yoga tradition of the yugas that a yuga doesn't mean we're like, it's the end of the world right now. The yugas can be like billions of years long. We don't know. We're said to be in the last of the 4 cycles, but it could be still billions of years. So not to be discouraged. We're going to take those legs out in front of us now and straighten the legs, flex the feet. And this helps firm up the kneecaps after that external rotation. We're going to just hold it there for 2 more breaths. Root your thighs down into the ground and sit up as tall as you can. Okay, from here, we're running out of time, so I'm not going to do any more standing poses today. We're going to take the feet apart wide into a straddle position. So we're going to pause here for a moment. Just move this out of the way. And flex your feet, kneecaps point up. Root your thighs into the ground and make sure your sit bones are pulled apart. We're going to come into a side bend like we did our side angle, and we're going to hold each side for a minute, and then we're going to do a forward fold in the center, and we're going to try and hold for one last time for 3 minutes in the forward fold. If you are having back problems, stay more upright. You can fold a little bit, but keep your spine more straight. Those of you who are feeling okay in your backs, you might allow a little rounding when we do the forward fold. So from here, shoulders back. Take your right hand, slide it towards your left foot. Now you can hold on to ankle or shin. You could also use a strap if you wanted to here. And we're gonna bring our other hand to our hip, just like we did in our side angle. Now take your collarbones, shoulders, broaden them, and turn your chest as if you're gonna look up toward the ceiling. Take your top rib cage, roll it back. Keep the legs active, and then we're gonna take the top arm straight up toward the ceiling. You can stay right like that, or just like we did in the side angle. Some of you might feel comfortable, arm over the ear. And then we're gonna hold that for just 1 minute. Just a little more active. So keep breathing here. Every inhale, you might reach through your top arm a little more. And as you exhale, you might root your legs down and turn into that twist. So the top rib cage is turning toward the ceiling. You're halfway there, a couple more breaths. Now, if it becomes too much, you can always release your hand back to your hip. That's gonna be a little more gentle on your back and even your SI joint here. Sometimes it's not happy in this side bend. So remember to listen to your body. Let's take 2 more breaths. On your next inhalation, after those 2 breaths, go ahead and bring that hand back down to your hip. Tone your belly first. Push that left hip down toward the ground, and that'll help you come up without so much strain on your back. And then pause in the center. Nice breath into your belly. And let's try that on the other side. So go ahead, slide that left hand out. And you can just pause holding ankle or shin, or hold your foot, or use your strap. Other hand to your hip. Roll that top shoulder back. And you can always stay there, or top arm could reach up, or take it over your ear. Starting our timer. Also, I forgot to mention, if those of you with a little bit more limitation in hamstrings, you could bend your knees here. That might feel better if you feel like this is hard to sit up. It'll take a little bit of the tightness out of the hamstrings to bend your knees. Now, as you inhale, we're reaching through that arm, whether it's up or over the ear. And as you exhale, root into your legs and turn open. Halfway there. Just 2 more breaths, and then we're coming out. After your second breath cycle, hand to the hip. Tone the belly first, push that hip down with your hand, and carefully come up to the center and pause. Good. So remember, we're doing that forward fold. We might want those knees bent, and you could kind of do a hybrid, something like this with the knees bent. Those of you who feel like you want to stay more with the legs straight, you can certainly do that. Okay, we're going to come just part way forward first. And as you pause there, tip your sit bones back behind you. We get that pelvic tilt. And you can stay right there with the spine more straight, or you could walk it out any amount. If you're close to the ground, put a block underneath your head for support. Good to rest the head, or stack 2 blocks up. And we're going to try for 3 minutes here. This is our last pose, and we're coming on to our backs. So just be smart about your lower back. If it's better to stay upright, you'll stay upright. Those of you coming into the forward fold, it might be nice now to let go of the effort. You can let your shoulders soften, let your head relax. face relax. And have a sense of gravity drawing you into the pose. All right, so since you're here for 3 minutes, I'm going to read one more passage here. Speed is antithetical to the practice of mindfulness. When we move swiftly, the world passes by in a blur. When we hasten through experiences, we fail to notice the nuanced expression of each passing thing. When we strive to get to our destination, the forward rush is all-consuming, and we only think about getting to where we are going. In the fast-track experience, we do not look around or take anything in. Caught in the trap of speed, we lose feeling and become anesthetized to the world around us. Speed inhibits contemplative awareness and stunts capacity for insight. It is difficult to see clearly when we are moving lickety-split down the track. So we've got 1 more minute here, and I wanted you to just have that minute in quiet to really go within, focus on your breath. Remember, slow, soft belly breaths. We've got 30 more seconds. The slower and softer your breath, the more the nervous system slows down its speed and allows your deeper tissues, the fascia, to start to release its grip so that you might be able to surrender a little more into that pose. Last breath. And then I want you to very slowly take your time, walk your hands up, and pause when you get to the top with your head vertical on top of your spine. Okay, let's go ahead and come onto our backs. You can use your hands, bring those knees in. You might be feeling that in the legs tomorrow a bit. And then go ahead and come down. You could put a pillow under your head. We'll do a couple things before Shavasana. We're going to end just a couple minutes late. Oh, I forgot about the bolster. We ran out of time. So let's use the bolster under our legs for our Shavasana. I was going to do a supported child's pose, but we totally ran out of time. Okay, maybe next time. So let's take the bolster underneath the backs of the legs. Scoot your tailbone out from under you as you come down. And then let's just do a knee hug and rock a little bit side to side. Massage out that lower back. Sometimes seated postures can be really challenging on our lower back if our back muscles are weak. So it's very helpful to strengthen the back as well as those low belly muscles. And then from here, we might come into a happy baby if that's something you enjoy. If you don't enjoy it, stick with a knee hug. You can also go to a wide leg happy baby. Since we did that nice seated posture with the legs open, you might be prepped for that if it feels good. If it doesn't, then just stick with any other version that you like. Let's hold for 2 more breaths. Interesting, when we slow our practice down, we don't get as many poses in, but it's just a different experience. So less poses, but more stability, more strength, more grounding. Okay, knees back into the chest. And then when you're ready, let's go ahead and find our Shavasana. And you can let those legs drape over the back of the top of the bolster. And you might even position it so that the bolster is under your hamstrings. And that is a nice softening effect for the lower back. If your lower back still feels a little cranky, bend your knees and make sure you scoot that tailbone away, which will lengthen out the lower back. So those of us who have a big curve in the lower back, big anterior tilt, it's nice to get that extra length.
Sorry about
and then
that.
Oh, that's okay. And let's go ahead and drop into Shavasana with that longer, slow breath. And really take a few moments to follow your exhales all the way out to completion. As if you were just kind of dissolving into those exhalations. And after you've had just a few rounds of really staying aware and conscious of your breath, start to let it go. And start to allow your body to just be here in the moment. Allow the mind to be quiet. And notice any shifts in your inner workings, in your physiology, in your nervous system. Maybe things are a little slower, both physically and mentally. Maybe less desire to fidget or adjust. And more of a desire to just stay still, stay present, and fully let go. So staying where you are, I'm going to share one more little passage, and then we're going to come up to sit for a moment. In our daily living, when friction accumulates due to speed, overwork, tension, the delicate tissues of the brain are susceptible to irritation and constriction. Rapidly ascending winds are triggered by frustration, restlessness, and impatience. Internal surges of upward moving heat and pressure are carefully avoided in the internal arts. In yoga, one of the great seals, internal movements done to direct the flow of prana, involves moving our chin toward our chest, which we did earlier. And this is said to contain our energy to prevent pressure from rising into the head. There's a similar idea in Chinese medicine, where sudden upsurges of wind are known as rebellious qi. Rebellious qi can lead to elevated blood pressure, migraines, acid reflux. So to counter this, all of the forms of these kinds of practices like yoga and qigong are designed to descend the life force into the lower belly, known as the dantian. So we worked a lot with that today. So take your time. We're going to come on up into a seated posture when you're ready. So start by deepening your breath, noticing how you're feeling. Slight movements at first. When you feel ready to, you could take some bigger movements, stretches, knee hugs, before a pause on your side. So let's try not to rush up. We're going to end about 5 minutes late today. So take your time. When you're ready, press yourself up to sit and find that comfortable seated position as we did in the beginning, widening out your sit bones. We're going to finish with a mudra. I'm going to come a little closer to show you guys the mudra. So you're going to take your index finger and you're going to put it in your thumb, base of your thumb, like you're making an okay sign, okay? And then your middle finger and your ring finger are going to touch the tips of your thumbs. Your pinkies could stay extended. And then we're going to rest that down onto our legs. And you're going to press those fingers and your thumbs together as you sit up tall. Breathe into your belly and let your chin drop slightly to find that containment of the energy. And just focus your awareness on that breath pattern. This is called the Apana Vayu Mudra. So Apana is a downward flow of energy. In India, this mudra is said to be very powerful, believed to save lives in the case of heart attacks, which is a lot of energy going upward. This mudra decreases vata, which you guys have heard me talk about before. So it's very useful for people who have anxiety, vata imbalance, reduces anxiety, regulates our hormones, and is ideal if we have like hyperactivity or impulsivity in our behaviors. So let's take a couple more moments to experience that mudra. Three more breaths. Face soft, belly soft, slow breath cycle. And after your third breath, you can slowly release your hand mudra, and we'll come into our final hand mudra, palms together in front of the heart space. Take an inhale, and as you exhale, bow your head down to your heart. And thank you so much, everyone. Namaste.